All right, we rolling? Ran into a conversation earlier. And it's funny because that guy has been in the greater area since he was probably his whole life. And I said, yeah, I just got moved back here, you know. It was a hell of a wait to get my license in general delivery. You know, he's like, why would you want to come back here? They're ripping off everybody. The taxes are high. And I'm like, I explained it. I'm like, well, I can walk onto the beach and there's seaweed, shellfish. You know, I can go make my pickles that way. I can walk into the woods and there's food growing everywhere. You know, and you can grow everything but citrus. I mean, if you built a below ground greenhouse, you could do that too. This guy was pretty typical. Not a bad guy, don't get me wrong. I know his song because it's our people's song. But this guy was pretty typical. This state's corrupt. It's been bad. I said, well, you know, it pretty much stopped being a working man's state somewhere in the early 2000s. And he said, it stopped being that in the 80s. And he said, well, if you want to go all the way back to the logging crash, you're correct. You are. You're right. When the logging crash happened, we've never recovered from that. And I don't care how many people talk about how nice the downtowns look. Back in the day, it's true. We had good family wage jobs. You could go to work, whether you're a logger, working a loader, working at a mill, whatever. You could work at somewhere along the line, even being one of the guys that was a commercial fisherman or something, and there was a future for you way back in the day. And that all pretty much ended in the late 80s. And then there was the dead zone time of the 90s. And in that dead zone time, yes, a whole lot of people from everywhere else moved in. I sometimes think the whole spotted owl government, you know, by a signature of a judge that shut down all the forestry, basically ruined it. Ruined the whole coastal areas from the whole Pacific, basically anywhere it happened. I know Oregon was destroyed just like Washington was destroyed. And he says, why would you want to come back here? I mean, you were in Idaho. I said, yeah, I was in Idaho. I told him, for tax reasons. And, you know, I told him, I said, I want to pay 6% to the state of Idaho. And they're like, well, yeah, but Idaho's a nice. No, I mean, it is to a degree. I said, I can't walk out into the woods in Idaho and find food year round. And he says, yeah, well, you need to do that around here with the cost of living. There's a lot of people I've met in my travels that have never left their hometown. They have never peered beyond the veil. They have never pierced that line of consciousness and reality. I did it. And when I've said retirement by 30, I wasn't kidding. It's a very simple plan. You live as cheap as possible. I don't care whether it's a tent, a share room, driving truck and living in the truck. You're a plumber, you're an electrician. You're doing something, but you're not paying fucking rent. Not paying utilities. You're not buying baby her, you know, can you pay for my car payment, honey? Buy me a cell phone. You focus on yourself. You do the hero's journey. I mean, shit, as a trucker, you can make 80 to 100K, you know, and living in the truck, your cost of living is what, $200-300 a month? And what I'm getting at with that is that all the people I grew up with had the option. And you know how many of those people that because they grew up after the logging crash, their family's plan was, well, we'll just keep on cutting down trees. Just like, and this is the very same thing that happened in the auto industry. Detroit didn't happen on accident. It is the exact same Americana plan of like, just keep on making payments. The crash happened all over the country in one time or another. The steel plants closing on the other side of the country. The logging in the late 80s here. It was a slow erosion and destruction of our country for fucking profit. Big corporations, government. And to be honest, even the working class that gladly voted for a bunch of free shit. Well, I paid my taxes. You fucking paid if you had one kid. Well, how much did public school cost? Did you pay more than that year? In taxes? Did you? No. You know, these days in this state, I think it's like 15,000 per child per year. You have 3 kids, two, three, just two. Let's go with the normal number, 2 kids. There's 30 grand you got in benefits, not including the child deductions. Like, fucking please stop bullshitting me, people. Most of you never pay taxes, and the federal taxes you pay and the state taxes you pay, you get all of it back, generally, the exception of the state. Sometimes the state's just a fucking rip-off deal, but the state taxes and the federal, you got these roads you drive on. Well, you think they just make themselves? You benefit from that. Even if you don't drive on them, some truck brings your food to your town. The fact you can go to a hardware store and get some product from somewhere else in the world, that is a great benefit. Everybody lives through this life thinking, oh, they're screwing us over so bad. But the number one person that's been butt fucking you your whole life is you. How do you tell that story to people? How do you convince people that have had it their whole life that, like, hey, I understand around where I'm from, yes, the liberals have fucked this place up. And they talk about saving the salmon or the sea lions. Heavens to Murgatroyd, the salmon. My God, they were so gung-ho to save the salmon, and now they're gung-ho to get rid of all the hatcheries that keep the salmon existing. Well, they have to naturally breed. Trust me, the liberals have fucked up my state, but it's been over 30 years. We knew, like, the unemployment where I grew up in this wonderful progressive state of Western Washington was double the national average. I grew up in that. I didn't know any different. When I got out there into trucking, and this is back before they had an H-1B for every fucking driver's seat. I'm just being honest. That is affecting truckers. If I'd known how good I would have been doing as an OTR trucker, I would have fucking left my town at 14 years old and been driving truck. They won't let you drive truck over the road till you're 21. Maybe you could drive local, at 16, 18. But the point is, I would have been the fuck out of there. I never met anybody like me back in the day. And so I come back and I still see a lot of these individuals. They're not bad people. Some of them are just old stoner smokies, working whatever job they can get. And the guy was saying, well, prices are better over there, Squim PA. I said, no, they're not. Not to mention, the town I grew up in out there, Port Angeles, it is literally going to shit. It is going to absolute shit. The homeless problem, they're having there's like a homeless apocalypse that happened here. I can tell. Like after a bomb goes off, there's a radioactive linger for ages. Even if it's not deadly, it's still kind of, it's there. You can detect it. I can tell they've done a lot to clean up this town here, even though there's still a lot of homeless people. And that's part of the reason the food banks are so goddamn good. They have to do something. But yeah, no, the problems here have been here. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. The homeless were always among you. They were just working class, working in shake mills, like cedar shake mills or wood mills, or if they worked in the Midwest, they were working in some granary, forklift. They were doing something back in the day. But due to cheaper labor or cheaper resources, that's one of the things that hit this area like a fucking bombshell. They could get trees in some other country cheaper than they can get them here. And so even cutting down our own trees at times doesn't make sense because, well, frankly, the products are going to be cheaper coming from China. And China can get that resource from some country that just doesn't give a shit. So the guy making, everything really good, I'm not angry. I'm passionate. Get the fucking words right, dipshit. That's angry. I'm passionate. You are just a pussy. And that's why, hey, why are you too angry? Why are you too angry? You're a fucking pussy. You think everybody's angry. Your dad should have smacked you a few times. Oh, wait, you never knew your daddy. Yeah, I'll clown on you. You want to be some fucking dumbass making the same comment. And by the way, when you guys make these comments, don't think this guy's the first. This ain't his first channel. He's been blocked a few times. Hi. Nice to see you made another channel, dipshit. Remember, you have to make extra channels to fuck with me. I don't have to do shit to get you to come to me. Get on the street, make me some money. Bam, bitch. Make me some money. No, I ain't angry, I'm passionate. But the reality is, when I look at this area, it's the same damn story. And by the way, say that shit to a black man. Say it to a black man who's passionate. Get the shit kicked out of you. Bunch of fucking cornball ass motherfuckers. Say that about Malcolm X or fucking what's his name? Martin Luther King. They weren't angry, they were passionate. They had a cause, a meaning, a glow. And maybe they were angry at times, and that's legitimate. Find a cause. But yeah, I come back to these areas and it's the same thing, decade after decade. You know? People that fucking never tried. And then people that basically get on the system. And honestly, to some degree, living on the system is better than working. Let's just cut the bullshit. It's better than working. If you're not some junkie that's doing a ton of drugs, you just drink occasionally, smoke a little weed, so you're not, your brain isn't all, I see a lot of them around these days. That may be dipshit that retracted his faggot message. Nice job, faggot. Baby, I got your money. Maybe he's one of them types. I was retarded because I did too many drugs. We got a lot of those around. There's always been a few around, but there's a lot of them now. But you give people that are old stoner smokies $1,000 a month and give them basically, you know, they live in like trailer or fuck a van. Let's be real. They live in a tent somewhere. Oh yeah, they've got nothing to look forward to. I'm being honest about this. The best things they got to look forward to is they get their EBT. They got maybe there's some fight, some MMA thing. They got some rock music, you know, whatever. They got some fucking shitty tweaker music they're listening to. God, my God. That's one thing I can tell you. Coming back here, meth is still king. I know fentanyl's here, but the fucking tweakers, dude. You're just like, you kind of forget it. Okay, let me explain something. The house in the other state, there ain't none of this shit around. Oh, sure, if there is, they keep it on the down low. They don't tweakers and fucking crack, like, I don't even know, are there crackheads anymore? There's got to be crackheads. Come on, it's crack. It's America. There's got to be crackheads. But like what do we call them? What do you call that? Not methanol. Fentanyl benders. You know, the people that are like slouched over because they're fucking that high in fentanyl. The fentanyl benders. The fentanyl benders, I think, have replaced the crackheads, just to be honest about it. But the meth around where I'm at, it's still, and you see these shitty vehicles. They either got a glass pack to sound like a shitty vehicle, or they basically have a really shitty muffler, and then they have the license plate cover with the skulls. Yeah, I know where I'm at. I know exactly where I grew up in this fucking shithole. I love the woods. I really do. I love the woods. I like the coast. When I was out there for that, I think 10 days or so out there in the West Twin area, underneath the transmission lines, I'd see a car maybe twice a day. Twice a day. Maybe, okay, 4 or 5 times. If it's the weekend, we're going to see a few more. One person in 10 days came up the place. They saw me probably on the other side of the road, you know, kind of things zigzag like that. And they were like, hey, what's over there? What's that? And they just kind of pop in there. And of course they do the douchebag redneck thing when they leave. A brand new vehicle. They hit the gas, try to spit a little gravel. And I'm just thinking, I'm laying there watching TV and I'm thinking to myself, that was totally necessary. Way to be a doucher. I mean, money. Okay. What I'm getting at with that is money does not mean that you have class. I'm sorry. You can make any amount of money, but you can still be a trashy fuck. I'm just being honest about that. But, you know, the same fucking broken ass mentalities that were here when I was a kid, of course, are still here. And one thing, I said this earlier, and this is really what the conversation's about. No amount of sympathy or anything, like maybe people can try to help you get to a better place, get an education, to, you know, be a plumber, an electrician, a something. Maybe something like that can get you a little ahead. But the only one that ever fucking matters in this game is you. Is motherfucking you. Because those people that were losers, and these are good people, don't get me wrong, but they're fucking losers. They basically were Stony Smokies. They had, oh, look at my pickup. Yeah, we're going 4x. And they get a little older. They get a little more tired, a little more broken. They have some kids. And they raise their kid. They do the best to raise their kids. And, you know, I'm sorry if I'm offending somebody who's heard a lot of classic country. If you did your best, you're a good man. You're a real man. I'm sorry. No, it's just like what I'd say to people in the hood. You know, like the first person that put you in poverty was probably your parents, and then it's your dumbass decisions throughout the course of your life. That's just common sense. And so what I'm getting at with that is that these people, they're always looking externally for what fucked them over. And sure, the logging crash is one thing, but there was nothing keeping all these people here. And the smart ones that went somewhere else and came back and it's like I was talking to him, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, he was talking about the cost of land. He's like, oh, land's so ridiculous. I mean, I was like, I got 2 lots down on the Hoods Canal for $50,000 4 years ago. And he's like, well, some people, you know, not a lot of people have money like that. Is there a fucking reason you don't have money like $50,000 ain't shit? Like, I will sooner or later, I will be back in the saddle when it comes to trucking. And even if it's not trucking, I will be working eventually doing something. Like a real solid job. I will be doing van life and working a job, or I'll just be doing trucking and just use the truck as my vessel instead of my van. But I tell you, $50,000 isn't fucking shit. And you live in this myopic little world, you think $50,000's a lot of money? It tells me you've never done shit with your life. It tells me you think like a common born. It tells me you are made to work and die. You are to be a beast of burden. I don't say that to hurt people's feelings. I say it because that's fucking reality. You see, if you were taught that basic strategy of live as cheap as possible when you're young, don't be chasing after pussy. Don't get me wrong, pussy's fun, but you shouldn't devote your whole goddamn existence to working a job just so you can... If that's your whole goddamn life, fucking you're no different than a goddamn animal. In fact, you know, there's an innocence to being an animal, but you're a thinking, intelligent being. I'd like to think so. But then again, it is kind of like what Aaron Clary said about a lot of construction workers, where they're talking about them and like, you get someone who has maybe an IQ of 87 on meth, you know, probably fucking their cousins, or some equally derelict trash situation. You used to see it on the res. You'd see it with the local, like, crackers around here. You know, I don't know, white people, whatever you want to say. You would see it. It was literally just people chasing the next fucking, whether it was a high or an orgasm. Just chasing the next pleasure. Well, that's what life is. Yeah, if you're a fucking, you know, below 90 IQ individual. Yeah, I bought the thing and the thing made me look popular. Fucking retards. And look, I know a lot of them are good people. But I'm lying when I say that. If they were good people, they would have had their shit together before they had kids. Except for they just did what felt good. Just like in the auto sector, when the factory shut down, all these people act stupid. What are we going to do? The auto factory shut down. Why did you buy a house on credit? Why did you buy a car on credit? You could have bought a used vehicle of whatever auto manufacturing you were making, and they said, don't you want a brand new one? No, when I can pay cash for it. That's what I tell anybody. Don't you want a house when I can pay cash for it? I don't care whether you buying raw land and put an RV on it. It's your land, your RV, and no one can fucking take that from you. Well, yeah, if the government comes along. But let's not get into the fucking weeds on this. It's the same story. The ghetto, same story. Hey, your mom decided it was a better deal to, you know, get a welfare check, just like a lot of white folks I've seen where I grew up. Yeah, maybe it's crack cocaine where you grew up, and here it was fucking meth, crank. fuck, there's a few drugs that I don't even know why anybody ever shit I've heard about where like people would take fucking wasp spray it on a window screen, a metal window screen, and then hit it with a battery with both ends and it make this dust. I'm like, why the fuck would you smoke that? People will do that shit. Just like, you remember that fake weed, Spice or whatever it was? They can't catch me now. God. You know, I guess what does kind of piss me off looking back at it is the generation that fucked us over the worst was probably the boomers, but really the greatest generation for not smacking the boomers. The greatest generation should have been like, no, you're not doing dumb shit. No, you're not going to run a debt. You're not. And they didn't care. And the line has always been, as long as it collapses after I'm gone, what do I care? And then Gen X kind of came into the scene. The scene was getting more and more consistently fucked up. Did they turn the ship around? Oh, fuck, no, they didn't. They did the boomer dance. Do the boomer dance. Then you get the rich boomers. And this is one thing I find funny when I'm bumming change. Rich boomers that get so offended at me shaking the ass for the money. Yeah, well, if I'm not driving truck, I'll just shake my ass for the money. I don't give a fuck. I made $300 the other day in 6 hours. Tax-free, baby. That's all tips. That's legal. Thanks, Trump. But it's funny. Even as a guy that's on the side of the road, I can consistently do better than most people. By the way, hey, any company wants to hire a trucker. Shows you I got dedication if I can shake my ass for 6 hours. My thought on it has always been like this. Work is merely just an exchange of lifetime skills for some product. I'm making people smile, and I'm making smug people feel better about their existence. If you're a smug bastard, oh my God, I can't believe that. You feel instantly better. At least that's not us. And then the other people are like, oh my God, that's so funny. I'm like, that's why I call the dance the maximum train wreck. Because it's a total train wreck. But I made $300 in 6 hours. Now, what's the moral of the story on that? If I, as a nomadic drifter, can do this well, and you could be driving a truck, you could be a plumber, you could be something, that there's literally nothing holding you back. The biggest problem America has these days is itself. And it's comfort. It has become so addicted to comfort. Comfort. My God, we can't leave our comfort zone. We can never leave our hometown. My God, I couldn't possibly live in a van or live in a truck, or hell, even if it was just for 6 months during the warm season, live in a fucking tent, working at a medium, not minimum wage, but slightly better than minimum wage job, so you could pocket all the cash. Hey, there's someone's backyard. Give them $100. I'll pay the utilities. Or do you just, instead of using their shower, you just use, what do you call it? A gym. There are so many ways you can get ahead in America. And yet we have domesticated people to such a point of failure that when I come back here, and not just here, the Midwest, I've seen it. You can still buy a house. I bet I can still find you a place in America where you could find an old 2-bedroom house for, basically 50 grand. 50 grand. 50 fucking grand for a whole ass house. I found 3 bedrooms. I think it was 50 to 70,000. That was Savannah, Tennessee. That was just a few months ago. It's funny when I do the whole shaking my ass thing. How you doing? Just all day with a smile. My natural look is my First Nations face. They took our land. But still, I'm telling you, just like a lot of countries that are trying to get into Europe or America, the reason your countries are shit is because you allow them to be shit. No, fuck that. See this, whatever looks like some sort of female thing, bitch there. USA is fucking great. The USA is great. It's that most people fucking suck. Okay? This is one of the few countries where in 7 to 10 years you can be retired. Stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. Stop buying shit you don't need. Buy a good used old vehicle that you can take care of. Stop buying crap you don't need. Okay. Let us see who this is. We don't need you around. Exiled. Your death is the solution. I don't give a shit. You try to tell me this country's a horrible place, but it's the fucking people. The people that have to be hand-fed everything. You have no individuality. Get these clowns out of here. Done with them. We don't need you. I'm telling you, you fucking losers, that in a country where you can literally live for almost nothing if you know how to do it. Go out there and, like I said, get a tent. Do a share room. Actually have the goal of getting somewhere. Invest when you're young. The investor class is making all the money. You know why? Because you're the consumer class. You're a consumer. You're made to buy. You were raised and trained, practically genetically engineered to buy things. Mostly shit you don't need. You remember when hot tubs were a thing? Oh, everybody had to have a hot tub. No, I'm thinking of water beds. Sorry, hot tubs are still a thing. Water beds. You remember water beds? Sorry. Remember all the fashion trends that were a thing that came and went, and you bought it wholesale? Could have bought it on the cheap at the thrift store, but you had to get it right there when it came out. You know, a lady back in the 80s, back when being a millionaire mattered, she became a millionaire by making fake cell phones. Fake car cell phones. Do you know what? That should tell you something about the human psyche, the American human psyche. We want to look like we've made it so bad that we'll pay somebody to install a thing that makes it look like we have a fucking cell phone, just so we're popular. Look at these dipshits that buy their Nike shoes. I could understand if that Nike was made in America and it was like, you know, like a Rolls Royce of shoes, but it's some cheap shit made in China, okay? So maybe the quality is a little better than the cheap shit from Walmart, but it's not the quality it used to be. But I gotta have it. This is the new one. You remember that version of the Nikes that literally looked like the Red Vines licorice? It was the ugliest fucking thing I've ever seen, and I saw all these dipshits walking by in them. You see the same thing with cars, clothes, everything. Jewelry. We went to this trip to this country. They still have a mortgage, but they're talking about going on this trip. All it takes is one person and their families. This is, you know what, I'm going to tell you something about the middle class versus the poor. Because the truly rich, the debt-free, are above all this. The middle class hate the fucking poor for one major reason. Because they know deep down, when they look at their bills, month to month, they're 2 or 3 months, maybe 6 months from being right on the street. Right on the fucking street. They're that close. Some of them aren't even 2 months from being right on the fucking street. But they sit there and puff their chest out like they're somebody. Meanwhile, they give away most of their money to interest on their loans and their bills, their mortgage. If you just do the hero's journey, you can be retired in America by 7 to 10 years. And I'll go over it. Easiest way I ever found was driving truck. It takes 3 weeks of training to get your CDL, 3 weeks of a driver trainer, you're off to the races. After 6 months, you can job hop to a better company. After a year, you can definitely job hop to some really premium companies. And living in the truck, what is your cost of living? Now, laundry has gone up, so maybe I should put it up to $30 a month. You know? Depends on what laundromat you go to. $30 a month for cell phone. If you decide to have a vehicle, some guys I've known don't even have that. They just have a family member or a friend pick them up at the terminal. So they don't even have to have a car or insurance or anything. They're never there to drive it, so they're like, fuck it. But let's say like an old van like what I've got. You get whatever you got to pay for an old vehicle. And then basically, older vehicles have cheaper insurance. I'm paying under $25 a month for my insurance. And because I was living in the truck, driving the trucks, I'm gone most of the time. I maybe went through $10 to $20. $10 some months in gas. I had one point where I just wanted to see how long the 2 tanks on this van would last. It took 13 months to burn out the 2 tanks of gas. So what I'm getting at, you can live off less than $200. If you hit the food banks, you can definitely get that food cost down. I'm eating better at going to a food bank than I ever was as a normal person. But, still $100, maybe a little more for food a month. Learn how to cook. So you're talking $200 to $300 a month. You get that rent thing figured out, whether it's a tent, whether it's a share room, whether it's anything, and you start making, 70, 80, 100K per year, 100K per year. Live in a state with no state income taxes. Why should you pay, like state I was in before, 6%? Why do I want to pay 6%? What do I get from that state that they don't give to everybody else for free? Once again, let me tell you, state income taxes, what do they give you that they don't give everybody else for free? What, a cheaper hunting and fishing license? Sorry, I ain't even got time for that shit anymore. In fact, to tell you the truth, I actually like bum and change way more than I like fishing. I like fishing, but unless it's good, I don't give a shit. But like that first year, a few years when you're out there and you got no bills, no problems, no nothing, you start investing your money. And I'm not going to tell you, but hey, the S&P has a better track record than most investors. Ask Warren Buffett. That's what that was his words exactly. So what's the point? If you're making 10% per 100,000, and that's not the greatest return, but that's pretty goddamn good versus the nothing you're making now. The average person on unemployment, Social Security, glorified welfare, Social Security. Most people never pay taxes. We could come back to that later. They pay it in, but they get more in benefits from, public school for their kids and all the other shit. Basically, you get 20,000 coming in a year, 30,000. Live in a state. Pick a state when you go to retire where they don't tax your capital gains, like Nevada. I think Florida doesn't either. There's probably more states. So you have one state that you use for tax reasons, and whatever other state that you visit, you have property up there, maybe a lot. Have an RV. Here's a pro tip: you want to get a cheap house? Look in the Midwest. You get out there in the Midwest, you can find some old people. They die in a little farm town, and the kids go to sell the house, and the house. There's nobody around needs a house at the time. Nobody's buying it. You can get a house for fucking pennies compared to what you'd pay on the West or East Coast. Any of these cities, you're just robbing yourself. Oh, $500,000 for, the same house you could get for $50,000 in fucking Oklahoma. Well, then you have to live in Oklahoma. Believe it or not, the Midwest is actually really beautiful. Sometimes it's a little weird, sometimes of the year it's not the best. But, like Kansas is another great example. Texas, or just if you don't mind doing the RV thing, I knew one guy that literally would travel from one place of the country to the other, had like a little gas efficient like station wagon type of thing, and he had a wall tent. He would just set up whenever he got to one of his pieces of property. He'd get up there and he basically set up his MASH tent. Yeah, I know that's weird. That's pretty extreme. I would recommend an RV. But yeah, you get a cheap piece of land where you've got water, some way of dealing with your sewage, maybe even that's just carting it off to a dump occasionally, maybe a composting toilet. You get your bills, like my property down here on the canal. It's literally 200 something, early 200 something for HOA per year, and 500 for taxes. We're talking less than $60 a month. Like, please try to bullshit somebody else about how hard it is to get by in America. I mean, I got a place where I can pick up all the channels from Bellingham, Puget Sound, Tacoma. I got internet from the sky there. And I got a climate I can grow anything in. Like this bullshit that you've been taught your whole life, that you have to have it all, and I have to have a house that's this big, this McMansion, blah, blah, blah. That's because they want you to work until you're dead. And believe you me, that was the same plan that everybody around my hometown did. Just like the auto industry, just like the big cities, everybody was told this is the standard you have to live, or you're a nobody. And you know why they taught you that? So you would pay interest your whole fucking life. And you die that way. And then when it comes to your kids getting some sort of legacy, good fucking luck. You want to know who leaves a legacy? Those who invest when they're young. And investing is not buying a pickup or an SUV or a Harley or a boat. Investing is the stuff that pays you compound interest. Like, and that's the difference right there. When I see those guys around town, I could argue there's a slave class to society. And I don't say that to be fucking mean or cruel, but they were taught to think like slaves. Well-dressed slaves. And it's kind of sad when I see it. That whole broke down, beat down, and the music tells you it, the TV tells you it, they tell you you'll never make it. Fucking morons on the internet like that common born right there that got fucking exiled. America's a great place if you just do the hero's journey. But if you don't have the nutsack to do the hero's journey, okay, that's your life. That's your choice. Look, it is what it is. I just think it's kind of crazy when I look at society and it's the same thing over and fucking over again. And that's part of the reason that I haven't really given up on what I know is true. But I'm not going to fight as hard to save up. I'm not going to swim for somebody else that refuses to move their arms and legs. Like if you're not, and by the way, if you're paralyzed, sorry, buddy, I'm not dying to carry your dead weight. I'm just not. But don't act like you're mentally paralyzed. Like there was never a choice when you had choices the whole way along. Anyhow, this is Freedom Phil. I got shit to do. Later.